Is the American dream turning into an American nightmare? It's a question that's been lingering in the air, a question that's becoming increasingly difficult to brush off as just pessimistic chatter. You see, there's a palpable sense of economic anxiety that's gripping the nation, a sense of unease that's fanning the flames of financial stress among Americans, and it's not just a small fraction of the population. We're talking about a significant percentage of Americans who are bracing themselves for their financial situation to take a turn for the worse. This level of concern, ladies and gentlemen, is the highest we've seen since the turbulent 1970s. So what's keeping Americans up at night? What's causing this mounting financial stress? Well, it seems to be a cocktail of rising costs that's stirring up the anxiety. The biggest culprit, unsurprisingly, is inflation. The cost of just about everything from transportation to utilities is on the upswing. But it's not just about filling up your gas tank or keeping your lights on. The cost of basic necessities like food is also skyrocketing, turning grocery shopping into a stressful exercise. But perhaps the most heart-wrenching aspect of this economic anxiety is the impact it's having on healthcare. Medical bills are a major source of worry for many Americans, and it's not hard to see why. When you're struggling to make ends meet, when every dollar counts, an unexpected health issue can be a financial disaster. It's a grim reality that many are grappling with, and it's contributing to the overall economic stress that's blanketing the nation. Indeed, the cost of living seems to be keeping many Americans awake at night. But this is more than just a bout of insomnia. It's a deep-seated anxiety, a growing unease about the state of the economy. It's a fear that the American dream, that iconic image of prosperity and opportunity, is slowly morphing into an American nightmare. Are Americans sacrificing their health over wealth? This is a question that has been echoing in the minds of many. After all, health is the real wealth, isn't it? Yet it seems that an alarming number of people in the United States are finding themselves in a situation where they are having to prioritize their financial stability over their medical needs. Imagine this. You're not feeling well. Perhaps it's a persistent cough or a nagging pain that just won't go away. But instead of rushing to the doctor, you find yourself checking your bank balance, wondering if you can afford a doctor's visit. This is not a hypothetical situation for many Americans. In fact, it's estimated that half of the population have chosen to neglect medical services due to cost. It's a tough decision to make, one that no one should be forced to make. But the rising costs of healthcare, coupled with the financial uncertainty that many are facing, leaves people with little choice. This is a clear indication of the economic strain that is burdening the average American, but it's not just the cost of healthcare that's causing concern. The perception of the economy is also a factor. 60% of the population view the economy as very poor. That's more than half the population who believe that their financial situation is not going to improve anytime soon. It's a gloomy outlook, one that is likely contributing to the decision to forego medical care. The connection between financial stress and health is not a new concept. It's well documented that financial stress can lead to a host of health issues, both physical and mental. But when the financial stress is so severe that it prevents people from seeking medical help, it becomes a vicious cycle, one that is hard to break free from. In conclusion, it's apparent that the economic strain is impacting more than just wallets. It's affecting health too. It's a situation that calls for urgent attention, for it's not just the economy that's at stake here, but the health and well-being of the American population. What happens when financial stress reaches unbearable levels? This is a question we need to ponder as we navigate through these turbulent economic times. The answer is not pretty. The major sources of stress, such as food inflation and the escalating Ukraine crisis, are putting a significant strain on Americans. Food prices are soaring, and this is hitting the average American hard. Every trip to the grocery store becomes a financial hurdle, a test of resilience. The crisis in Ukraine is adding fuel to the fire, causing further anxiety and uncertainty. And how are people coping? Not very well, it seems. Many are resorting to unhealthy mechanisms to deal with the stress. An alarming number are turning to alcohol, drinking more as a way to escape the harsh realities of their financial situation. The evidence is clear. Financial stress is indeed taking a toll on the American psyche. Is the American consumer retreating? This question rings in the air as we dive into the grim reality of consumer spending in the United States. The specter of high inflation looms large, casting a dark shadow over the land of free enterprise. With every passing day, the American dream seems to be receding further into the horizon. Inflation, the invisible thief, has been silently eroding the purchasing power of the average American. It's forcing families to delay major purchases like homes and cars, and even reconsider the necessities. A trip to the grocery store or a simple night out has become a luxury for many. But it's not just about cutting back on spending, it's about the hard choices one has to make when the cost of living keeps rising but the paycheck doesn't. This economic squeeze is more than just a pinch. It's a vice grip that's tightening around households, making it harder to breathe, harder to plan, harder to dream. The once vibrant marketplace, bustling with eager consumers, seems to be quieting down to a mere whisper. The situation is so dire that a substantial number of people view the US economy in a negative light, comparing it to the grim days of a recession or even a depression. The optimism that once permeated the American spirit feels like a distant memory. The gleaming shopping malls and the packed restaurants, once symbols of American consumerism, now echo with an eerie silence. And it's not just about the numbers or the economic indicators, it's about the people. It's about the mother who has to tell her child that they can't afford a birthday present this year. It's about the father who has to work 2 jobs just to put food on the table. It's about the college graduate who has to delay their dreams because they can't afford to move out of their parents' home. The American consumer, once the engine of the economy, appears to be stalling. This is not just an economic issue, it's a crisis of the American dream. And as we navigate through these troubled waters, the question remains, how do we reignite the engine of consumer spending and in turn the American dream? Are Americans resorting to desperate measures? It seems the answer, sadly, is yes. In recent times we've seen a surge in reports of unusual thefts, signs of a society under increasing pressure. Gasoline, a commodity we once took for granted, is now being stolen, not to mention large structures that are disappearing right under our noses. These aren't just random incidents, they're glaring indicators of a society grappling with desperation. And let's not forget about consumer spending. It's become a game of the haves and the have-nots. A small percentage of high-income earners are driving the same spending as the vast majority. This skewed reality is not only unsustainable, it's a ticking time bomb, threatening to deepen the societal divide and exacerbate economic turmoil. The current circumstances are forcing many into corners they never imagined they'd be in. When survival becomes a struggle, people resort to desperate measures. Is America's leadership losing its grip? This question has been echoing across the nation, stirring a wave of uncertainty and dissatisfaction. A record number of citizens now believe the country is veering off course, straying from the path of prosperity it once faithfully tread. This sentiment is more than just a whisper of discontent. It's a resounding outcry, a plea for change. As the cost of living continues to rise, approval rates for the government are falling, forming a stark, inverse relationship. It seems the higher the prices, the lower the faith in the nation's leadership. And it's not just about the dollars and cents. It's about the feeling of security, the sense of stability, and the promise of a better tomorrow that seems to be slipping through the fingers of ordinary Americans. The divide on solutions to the current economic problems is as wide as the Grand Canyon. On one side, there are those who advocate for more government intervention, for increased social safety nets, and for wealth redistribution. They believe that the government should play a more active role in mitigating the economic distress of its citizens. On the other hand, there are those who champion the free market, arguing for less government interference, lower taxes, and a return to the principles of capitalism. They place their faith in the invisible hand of the market to correct the current economic downturn. Yet, as these debates rage on, the average American continues to struggle, caught in the crossfire of political ideologies. The question remains, which path will lead the country back to economic stability? This political divide, this tug-of-war of ideologies, is more than just a disagreement. It's a manifestation of a deeper issue, the growing disconnect between the people and their leaders. It's a chasm that needs to be bridged, a gap that needs to be filled, if America is to navigate its way out of this economic storm. There seems to be a growing disconnect between the people and their leaders. And as this divide widens, the call for unity, understanding, and effective solutions grows louder. Will America's leadership rise to the occasion? Only time will tell. Is the American empire in decline? This is the question that looms over the minds of many, both within the nation and beyond its borders. The United States, once an embodiment of resilience and prosperity, now grapples with a series of formidable challenges that threaten its very foundation. On one hand, the country is wrestling with a ballooning debt. This financial behemoth casts a long shadow over the nation's economy, stoking fears of a future marred by fiscal instability. The specter of economic turmoil looms large, with the once robust American economy now showing signs of vulnerability. Rising prices, coupled with stagnant wages, have led to an economic squeeze that's left many Americans feeling the pinch. On the other hand, poverty, a term often associated with less developed nations, has become a stark reality for many Americans. The widening wealth gap is creating a chasm in society, leading to a dichotomy of haves and have-nots. This social inequality is not just a financial issue, it's a societal one, threatening the very fabric of the American dream. Moreover, widespread disillusionment is seeping into the psyche of the American people. There's a growing sentiment that the leadership has failed to effectively address these mounting challenges. This perceived failure is not just undermining faith in the current administration, but also casting a dark cloud over the nation's future. The sharp contrast between the current state of affairs and the historical image of a thriving, prosperous America is stark. It's a contrast that raises questions about the trajectory of the American empire. It's a contrast that's making many question whether the United States is indeed on the decline. The once shining city upon a hill appears to be losing its luster. This isn't a statement made lightly, but rather a reflection of the growing concerns and the harsh realities that the nation is grappling with. But it's also a call to action, a reminder that the future is not set in stone, and that the American spirit of resilience and innovation can still turn the tide. Can America wake up from this nightmare? That's the question that's been echoing in our minds. As we stare into the abyss of what feels like a long-term decline, it's time for us to acknowledge the depth of the issues we're grappling with. This isn't a simple hiccup in our economic journey. These are profound challenges that we're facing, challenges that aren't going anywhere without meaningful action. Our nation, once a beacon of resilience and prosperity, is now wrestling with debt, economic turmoil, poverty, and a growing sense of disillusionment. We can't simply paper over these cracks and hope for the best. We need to confront these realities head-on, to acknowledge the depth of these issues and the work it will take to overcome them. This isn't about pointing fingers or laying blame. It's not about political affiliations or ideological divides. This is about the very soul of our nation, about the American dream that seems to be slipping through our fingers. It's about recognizing that we are on a path that isn't sustainable, that isn't in line with the values and principles we hold dear. We need a collective awakening, a collective understanding that we can't keep going down this road. We need to rally together, to recognize that our strength lies in our unity, in our shared commitment to a better future. We need to understand that the state of our economy, the state of our society, is a reflection of us, of our choices, our actions, our priorities. It's time for us to take a long, hard look in the mirror, to ask ourselves if this is the America we want to be, the legacy we want to leave behind. It's time for us to confront our demons, to chart a new course. A course that is sustainable, that is inclusive, that is in line with the values and principles we hold dear. A course that ensures that the American dream isn't just a dream, but a reality for all. It's time for America to confront its demons and chart a new course,